Bust it.
Hello and thanks for staying with us. Welcome to Political Platform. My name is Amechi Anakwe. It's a beautiful Monday morning here at the nation's capital. The sun is shining very brightly. Lots of developments. Peter Obi as the choice of the PDP and Atiku Abubakar as the vice presidential candidate. Some political leaders in the southeast not happy with that move. They addressed the press over last weekend in Enugu saying that they were not consulted in that actions. They said they are not against Peter Obi, but not consulted. Now you ask, what purpose were they trying to achieve with going public with that statement? Are they not falling short of the same issue they accuse Atiku of not consultation? If they have any issue with the choice of Peter Obi, should they not have raised it up privately with Atiku Abubakar or the PDP as a party with a view to resolving it? By going public, are they not exacerbating the situation? Some of them have intentions and ambitions of being the vice presidential candidate. Is it that they were angry that they were not picked and Peter Obi was picked ahead of them? Anyway, the reaction they got from the people, especially on the social media, would have made them to begin to have a rethink and regret the action they took. The conclusion is that it is a Nigerian issue, a Nigerian project, and should go a far way beyond the southeast. Some of the people even question the credentials of those that paraded themselves as what they refer to, and what one of our listeners referred to as so-called Igbo leaders. Did they really have the interests of the Igbos at heart? That's the big question that is left unanswered. A travel ban imposed on some unnamed 50 persons. A list is circulating around the social media, but the presidency came up very quickly to say, no, this list did not come from us. Now, where did the list come from? Okay, with the presidency released the list of 50 persons, they said, no, we are not going to do that. Now, in the alleged list that was being released and circulated in the social media, two names of two Nigerians who are late were there. Akwe Doma, former governor of Nasarawa State, and Justice Umezurike, late former Chief Justice of Enugu State. Interesting times we await much later on this program, or even on subsequent days, we shall be giving you indeed legal opinion on that very controversial Executive Order number 6. The presidency said it is intended to fast-track anti-corruption cases in court and to prevent the suspects from whittling down and dissipating some of the property in contention. But so many others believe it is unilateral and the president is simply trying to usurp the powers of the judiciary, that such order, either to prevent somebody from traveling outside the country or to seize the property temporarily or permanently, it can only come from a judgment or order of the court. My colleagues are here with me in the studio. Mustafa Mohammed, welcome to Political Platform.
Thank you very much. The ban list is very interesting, but we also know the legal principles, especially in the criminal law, that every person you are alleging to have committed an offense is innocent until contrary is proven in a court of law when you get the person convicted. Now, even if the presidency denies this list of 50 people, you know that anyone who has not been convicted among these 50 people is still an innocent person. Therefore, the presidency should have considered that before taking that action. Of course, the EFCC is already doing its work. The judiciary is already doing its work. So many of them have been arraigned, except if that list is true. Then, secondly, on the issue of the emergence of Peter Obi, if they have not done the peek behind the door. Imagine you open the podium, just like you have stated, Amechi, where if you want somebody to contest, you are looking at maybe you can have 10, 15 people, you can have up to, 50, 60. If you look at the credentials of Peter Obi and what he has done with Anambra State as a governor, and then you think about the Nigerian project, of course there might be other people who are qualified, but Peter Obi is actually somebody that Nigerians will need. Of course, you have other people like Okonjo, Ewela, and so many other qualified people, but this one has been in Anambra State Government House, and he has done wonderfully well in his projects, anti-corruption, remodeling of the state. And of course, the Nigerian people have started changing camps, defecting from one party to the other, angry people from the various political primaries that party primaries that took place very soon, and of course the emergence of other people as candidates in other parties have attracted so many people to change their camps.
Shola Jaisimi is also with us in the studio.
Yes, a very interesting weekend on the political scene as it concerns Nigeria. The executive order, which came out, midweek, then the presidency, the executive branch summed it up at the weekend with the travel ban. Unfortunately, someone was throwing a charge this morning, whether the office of the Secretary to the Government of the Federation, as well as the office of the Attorney General of the Federation and the office of the Chief of Staff, whether they synced to be able to put that list together, because the names of some
people...
No,
they said the list didn't come from them.
No, what I'm saying is that it's still speculative, because the government is saying we won't publish any list.
Yes.
And at the same time, a list is out there. Now, what I'm saying is that what is out there shows that there are one or two people who are late. So whether, there was a sync, because eventually, because to avoid embarrassment, the government might decide to say, look, we don't have any list we're giving anybody. Whatever is out there in social media belongs to the social media. And we wouldn't, like to push what's on the social media as the authentic thing on mainstream media like this. But the fact remains that if the presidency has, the executive branch has something it wants to do, it needs to be able to show and assure that it's being done in good faith, in the sense that some are questioning the timing, but some also still say better do something than not doing at all, so that as much as possible.
Anti-corruption campaign is one of the cardinal principles of
this administration. So if it's looking at it and say, 9 months to the end of our tenure, we ought to have done this, or is it 7 months? Then let's hit the ground, quote, running to be able to achieve this. Then I want to just touch on something which I spoke on last week. And, I said with a lot of emotion. When some saw me later, they said, why do you talk a lot like I said, well, it's burning in my own heart as a professional, a broadcaster, a journalist. And the Guild of Editors has ended this conference in Asaba, and it has tossed the ball back in the court of INEC. I mentioned issues about seeming partisanship, that people have been rubbing minds with some of us on, like, what's happening to you guys, newspaper editors, senior journalists, what's happening? Why are there cleavages? And I said, well, we need to look at ourselves and try and make sure that we remain non-partisan, neutral, objective, and the truth must be at the forefront. Now, the Guild is saying, INEC, you are the ones to ensure that the votes count in 2019. So it's a symbiotic relationship.
And I can tell you that some reorganization in INEC,
clearly,
Amina Zakari, the woman, the PDP said, is a close relative of the president, has been the national commissioner in charge of electoral operations. And she was involved in Osun election and so many
all of them were involved.
Elections. I mean, as the national commissioner in charge of electoral operation is one on ground. The chairman most times stays in Abuja, while the national commissioner is the one dealing with the issues of election conduct on location. And so many fingers have been pointed at her, and pressures made to be on INEC. And just last week, they capitulated. There was some reshuffling. Amina Zakari has been given welfare and health.
Yeah, she's a pharmacist by training.
Yes,
so probably the
she
top
suits better in the health and welfare department. Why Professor Okechukwu Iban, who was my lecturer in UNN, is now the man in charge of electoral operations. And of course, we hope that he will bring in neutrality and objectivity into that very critical position within INEC. Some other positions we also swore. But let's welcome Ehedu Aniagu, a host of the Editors Conference in Asaba. We'll be speaking on various issues, maybe outcome of that conference in Asaba. Indeed, some developments within his party, the PDP. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you very much, Amechi. I also listened carefully to a number of the issues you raised this morning. And first of all, good morning, listener. And I want to say that it's most important for us to begin to take a look at what are we saying and not what are they saying. And if we have to begin to take a look at what they are saying, it means we are continuing to allow the politicians to set the agenda. And what is important and paramount in this respect is that we must take back our country. And the only way we can take back our country as media practitioners is to put the issues on the table. We are talking about issues of those who have lost their job, issues of unemployment. Those who want to come in, are they going to be in a better position to make it better than those who are here presently? We are talking about the issues of economy not performing very, very well. Those who are coming in, do they have the pedigree to make it look better than it is at the moment? We are also talking about the issue of division among the different groups in Nigeria, that today the country is much more divided than we can ever think of. Those who are on ground, are they thinking of how to make it better compared to what those who are coming in are proposing? So that we take this thing to the electorate. If we don't do that as media practitioners, we will only be reporting what they are saying. And you know what? They will only be saying those things that suits them. It is either somebody is telling you that President Muhammadu Buhari is a bad man, or he's telling you that Atiku is a bad man. But the issue is that what the Englishman may call Hobson choice. The issue is that we have a choice between two persons. But beyond these two persons,
let us look at more than 30 persons.
Yes.
I heard about 39 parties.
It is true, but let us face the facts. We are talking about the political parties that have the structure. The reason why the discussion is rotating or more or less navigating between two major groups, APC, PDP, is because we know what's happening at the moment. The states where you have the power to mobilize votes, it's not the one who will come and speak grammar, just like you have in the US, where the moment a Democrat emerge, they begin to look at who is going to emerge in the Republican. It does not mean that other political parties don't exist, but everybody know that these two parties.
It's always good to give them a mention and understand that
you will mention the body.
Such as Obia Ezekwesili, who is the presidential candidate.
Yes, in mentioning them, it is all very, very paramount that the media does not in any way lose sight of the provision of Section 22 of the Nigerian Constitution, which makes it very, very clear that the media has the responsibility of holding government accountable to the people. And the best way you can do that is to put the issues as it affects Nigerians on the table. Once you do that, you are able to properly educate the Nigerian people, which is also one of these some of the issues the editors discuss in Asaba. And I just do hope that if time permits, we'll be able to look at them one by one as it affects both the practitioners and possibly how to strengthen our electoral process.
Okay, we'll be taking a break to take your mails. When we come back, we'll also be having a legal practitioner, Johannes Ujola, to offer his perspective on this very controversial executive order number 6. Please don't get away.
Welcome to the mail segment. I am Etenikang Akepu, and we begin with the travel ban on some Nigerians. And Andrew Morgan in Abuja says the executive order number 6 signed by Mr. President, which prohibits those undergoing prosecution from traveling, conflicts with the constitutional rights to freedom of movement and usurps the powers of the courts. This is because they are yet to be convicted and are still innocent in the eyes of the law. I call on those who are affected to appeal the High Court's judgment, which upholds the order, as we are not in a military regime. Non-political alliances, Laji Agbas in Ida says, truly there is neither permanent friendship nor permanent enmity in politics, but permanent interest. The spokesman of the PDP, Kola Olobodinyo, expressed his anger on this platform against the smartness of Saraki, who passed a night at the parking lot of the National Assembly complex just to secure the seat of presidents of the Senate. But with the power conferred on PDP, Kola and Saraki are now friends. Adams Oshimole is accommodating members of the opposition he tagged as irresponsible before they defected to his party, the APC. Atiku wants the president under PDP, a party he emphatically and vehemently condemned with unprintable words. Obije damned his principles and returned to PDP, where he vowed not to lick his vomit, and even reunited with Atiku, even when he said God won't forgive him. On the other hand, the two former governors of Kano State, Ibrahim Shekarau and Rabi Musa Kwankwaso, parted ways again no sooner than their reconciliation to enable them contend for a senatorial position in 2019. If we care to know, in the last 7 years plus, the home state of OBJ, Ogun State, has been under the control of the then ACN that transmuted into APC in 2014. In spite of the endorsement of Atiku by OBJ, Ekiti is transmuting into the 6th southwest state under the control of the ruling APC, in spite of the endorsement. Nigeria can only succeed when national interest is overwhelming personal and selfish interest. May Nigeria and Nigerians succeed. That's it on the mail segment. Keep sending your mails to political platform at raypower.fm. The program continues with Amechi Anakwe.
Thank you so much for staying with us. Let's start with Executive Order number 6. Barrister Johannes Wojiola is on the line. Thank you so much for joining us.
It's my pleasure, Mr. Amechi.
Now, a lot of people, very many people have criticized the action. They said, look, the order should come to prevent someone from traveling out of the country, or even forfeiting temporarily or permanently some property or investment. It can only come from a judicial pronouncement, and not the president waking up one day usurping the powers of the judiciary in doing that. How do you react to this?
Well, I'm happy that at least people are asking questions, but this issue is as plain as we can say it. The president is if the court gives an order today. Let us come to this from this perspective. If the court gives an order today and says so person should not leave the shores of this country, who implements the order? Is it not the same executive? Is it not the immigration officers? It's the same with people. So what we're having right now is a presidential directive, which is an executive order. And perhaps I should give a background to what an executive order is. And I think I've done this before on your program. An executive order is simply a directive by the president, the head of the executive, to members of his executives on how policy directions should go. It is the same way you have within the court space, the same way you have within the court space, you have practice direction within the that is given by the chief judge or the CJN to judicial officers on how practice should be done. So what the president is simply saying, in furtherance of the application of the Executive Order 6, and of course Executive Order 6 is a directive by the president to the AGF and certain agencies on ensuring that deliberate action must be taken by these agencies to ensure that funds and assets which are under investigation are under a matter in court must not be dissipated. So it is instructing the AGF and other relevant institutions and agencies to do all that is legally permissible.
Now, yes, that's where the difference comes in. All that is legally permissible. Now,
absolutely.
Should the government, the AGF, the security agencies, not wait for a judicial pronouncement? For instance, we know that when someone...
you are jumping, you've not let me land. And if I had landed...
Okay, please go ahead.
I'll get to that point. Now, to do all that is legally permissible to ensure that these assets are not dissipated. If you have a document, a copy of the executive order, there were about 155 cases. So about 155 cases, they were immediately affected by the executive order. Why? Those cases are already in court. Those cases are already subject to litigation, and thus the AGF has been given a directive that whoever is handling those cases in court should immediately seek an application from the court to prevent these people to use any legal permissible means to ensure that those assets are not dissipated. Now, going forward.
No, I think what you have said, you are providing further clarity that the president asks them to maybe make an application. So you agree with us here that for such pronouncements, for such order to be executed, it must come from the courts. Then the executive, being the body, the arm of government that executes the law, implements.
No, the president hasn't said anything outside that line. The president has not said anything outside that line.
But did you see the statement Garba Shehu issued over the weekend, where he said 50 persons will be prevented from going out?
In fact,
now,
no
court has given that directive yet. 50%.
He said no fewer than 50%.
Yes.
And I mentioned, let me draw your mind to why I said that there were 155 extort cases. They were already in application. Are you with me?
Yeah,
are you with me? There are already 155 cases in court, which are already immediately affected by this by the executive order. Now, why is it so? Because the AGM has already even applied to the court. He has already applied to the court.
So the process is on.
The cases are already on. The cases are already on. The cases have been on for some of them for more than 7 years, some of them for more than 10 years.
I think we're on the same page on this. You have brought out the facts as they are. The issues are before the court.
Let me add something. The AGM has already, in most of these cases that are in question, the AGM has already applied that these people that the court should seize their passports. So the court in most of these cases have seized their passports already. A lot of these people here who are on the 155 cases already have their passports seized by the court.
Let me quickly ask this question. Every person who is alleged to have committed a crime is presumed guilty by our laws. Yes. Now,
presume innocent.
Presumption of innocence.
Presumption of innocence is there. These people have not been convicted. Would you now agree with me that bringing this executive order is punishing them before any conviction in the future?
No, it isn't. It isn't. You see, the thing is this. We have cases in court that have been in court for 10 years, 15 years, corruption cases, where there are allegations that certain persons have taken funds from the government purse and have utilized those funds for their personal gain. And they keep using those same funds to prosecute cases. The essence of this executive order is this. Let us ensure that those funds remain where they are, and so that it's a human logic thing. If I have a case, God forbid, really, I have a case in court, and I have 10 billion naira.
Okay.
I'll use 5 billion naira out of that 10 billion and prosecute the case and ensure that case.
I think we have heard you loud and clear. You have stated the facts as they are. The issues are before the courts, and action can only be taken when the courts give the directive.
When the court has given several directives already for the seizing of certain passports to certain individuals.
And the court has also given back this passport to some of those that came back to seek clarification from the court for medical treatment.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Johannes Wojola, for your input.
Johannes has his own viewpoints, which and he has marshaled them as best as he can. Kudos to him for his own efforts. But there's still many out there who have issues around the timing and the essence.
Maybe
the spirit of the law.
Want to speak on that.
Yeah, the spirit of the law and the letter clearly shows that the president can go in a particular direction. And like his officers have been, attempting to prefer answers, they are saying, look, the role of the court is still very key in this whole executive order. That the Office of the Attorney General of the Federation will need to get back to the court to secure any order, because it's not just a fiat or a straight-jacketed thing by the executive branch.
Sometimes when we talk about this corruption and individuals, we make it sound as if their mother or their parents gave birth to them in corruption. So in which case, from the day they were born, the blood flowing in them, everything they have acquired, including their education, is a product of corruption. Look at what he said, that if you leave the money with them, that they will use the money to prosecute their case. Is it also the intention of government that when you drag somebody to court, that he should be poor, he should not have money to prosecute his case?
If you prosecute your case, in question.
No, if you know
the money in question,
they also have things they have acquired before now. Why are we making it look as if individuals have taken money and then this money just lost somewhere, they are not even making use of it? What did we do with respect to elections? We believe that because it's important for us, and then we set up electoral tribunals, in which case the moment you go into election, recall that before 2011, before 2007, people stay in court for more than 3 years, even when the tenure they are fighting for is already gone. But the National Assembly, the lawmakers came back and said, let us find a process. Now it is, once it's not pre-election, it's time bound. that the court of first instance in this case High Court stays for 6 months, which is 180 days. Thereafter, Court of Appeal 90 days, which is 3 months, and then the Supreme Court. So within 1 year, he's dispensed with. If the administration is desirous of indeed fighting corruption on behalf of Nigerians, not on behalf of themselves, the best thing to do is to put in best practices. Why don't us progress to see how we can even set up anti-corruption courts? So in which case, the moment they start your case, you don't just leave somebody in court and you travel to Obogonogo market to begin to look for evidence to nail the person.
But you do remember that the Administration of Criminal Justice Act has most of these areas embedded. So what the administration is probably trying to say is that the legal minds are, finding a way around the process to delay dispensation of justice.
It's the same thing with the issue of electoral issues. If you make it that the adjournment is not a question of 3 months, 4 months adjournment. Most of the adjournments take as much as 2 months. Why not adjourn day by day?
One sentence on P2B.
Well, everybody knows, at the risk of sounding immodest, that the pedigree of P2B is such that anybody who moves against him is moving against the tide. Here is a man who had the privilege of presiding over a state 2 times of a period of 8 years. He did not only just preside over that state, he left it as one of the most viable states in Nigeria. Anambra State is the second smallest state after Lagos in this country. But Anambra's economy is one economy, even when it's not one of the oil-rich states or states that is as commercially viable as Lagos, that did not fall into recession, even when we were suffering from national recession. That was why when some of those elders in the southeast attempted to do what human being can do in terms of politics, they saw that they were moving against the tide. And I can tell you, from what happened last night when the fire was being sent forth by the governors, that they have already put their journey in the reverse gear.
And are now working for the
they are already saying that this is the way to. After all, I think we had a choice of going to the southwest. So the people of the southeast need to rejoice.
Thank you
and
so
then make
much
this thing
for
work for all of
coming
us.
around today, and thank you so much for being part of it, our dear esteemed listeners. We'll do it again on Tuesday. My name is Amechi, and we have a good time.